Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Canada Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, we've seen this dominant ridge of high pressure over the Canadian prairies here over western Canada, and that's kept things pretty quiet. It's suppressed the active storm track to the south. That's kept things busy across the lower 48 of the United States here, but again, across the Canadian prairies, it's been really quiet, pretty boring over the last couple of weeks. And we're going to see this break down a bit as we get to the last part of next week. That's going to allow potentially some winter precipitation, some more significant precipitation to move into at least southeastern parts of the Canadian prairies here, and we'll take a look at that as we go through this video. Now let's go ahead and play this out. We're looking at the 500 millibar height anomaly map that shows us this big ridge over the Canadian prairies, the active storm track off to the south. Let's see what happens as we go through the week. We see that ridge hold on, but then as we get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we start to see a trough sneak into the area. Here it is one more time late next week. That's going to bring another storm system across certainly the northern plains and the upper Midwest, but it's also going to bring a chance for some precipitation on the north side of that into the Canadian prairies. Again, at least parts of the southeastern portions there of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. We could look at temperature anomalies. Again, it's been pretty warm across the region, and it's going to stay that way for the most part as we go through next week. A little bit of cooler air moving in, possibly Monday and Tuesday. We can look at that here. We're on late Sunday getting into Monday, and Tuesday we see maybe a little brief cool down getting out of the area. As we get into Wednesday and Thursday, warmth really regaining its hold on the area until that storm system begins to move through late next week. Friday and now Friday afternoon, seeing that colder weather, colder temperatures certainly sinking back into the region. Now the bigger story is precipitation. We're finally going to see some of that working into, again, at least southern Manitoba and southern Saskatchewan. Some higher snowfall totals again expected across parts of the Front Range as well in Alberta. This is 24-hour increments of precipitation from the European model. And what I want you really to notice is it's quiet for much of the week, but then as we get towards the end of this loop, that's going to be towards Thursday and Friday, that's when we see precipitation chances beginning to increase again across parts of the southern areas. What does that look like here as we look at the European model's precipitation type forecast and surface pressure? We'll go ahead and go through time with this one just so we can watch things bit by bit. We're into the early part of next week now, Monday. Getting through the day on Tuesday, again, we're quiet across this area, starting to see some snow in the Front Range of the Rockies there in Alberta. Here we see that again, some snow falling now Tuesday night, getting into early Wednesday, some light flurries possible across other portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. No significant precipitation falling until we get into now Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. That's when we start to see this next potentially significant storm system late next week across the upper Midwest or the northern plains. What we see here is that begin to lift off to the northeast. Now, the exact track of this is absolutely not set in stone, and it will absolutely shift north-south. The intensity may increase or decrease. But right now, I just want to show you what it looks like now as we look 168 hours into the future, and that's where that uncertainty comes in. But it's about the most interesting thing we've had in the Canadian prairie region here over the last couple of weeks that I can remember. So we'll be watching this together. Of course, Eric will have another in-depth update on Monday in our ag forecast video, and then I'll have another Canadian regional forecast for you Tuesday. So plenty of time to kind of digest this thing before it moves into the area. But the message I want to convey, I guess, is that it looks like another quiet 4 or 5 days before potentially a storm system tracking through at least southern Manitoba, maybe Saskatchewan getting in on that as well, but bringing some unsettled weather. Here we see these isobars pretty tightly packed in this area. That means windy. That's bringing in cooler temperatures. So while it might feel a little spring-like during the early and mid parts of next week, we'll certainly get that winter vibe coming back in by the time we end the week. Total snowfall, we can go ahead and loop this out. Again, remember, don't focus in on specific amounts. Just kind of look at the overall pattern, quiet until we get into the late part of the week where we see that potential swath of snow moving through. Right now, it's got that again going through southern Manitoba, off into Ontario with the Dakotas getting in on some of that. We've got another potential storm system coming through later in the weekend that'll likely track a bit further south that could bring some more snow to parts of the upper Midwest getting into Ontario as well. But overall, right now over the next week, over the Front Range here in Alberta and then southern Manitoba look to be the hot spots for any accumulating snow. Temperatures are going to be a bit volatile, a little bit of a roller coaster ride here over the next few days. Starting off a bit warm if you're in Alberta and southern Saskatchewan there. High temperatures here in the 60s. If we talk about Celsius there, we're getting into the teens across the region. We see that minor cool down as we head into the later part of the weekend here. We're on Sunday, high temperatures. If we're looking across Alberta, we're around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way down to the teens in Fahrenheit, which is going to be, getting around from the single digits Celsius in Alberta, going back down to below zero as you get into Manitoba. We see a brief warm up get into the area midweek. We're on Tuesday and Wednesday now, seeing some 60s across southern Manitoba, talking Fahrenheit again, so teens. If we're talking Celsius, but then I want to play this out again, not looking at specifics, but just checking out the overall pattern as we get into Friday. Certainly colder weather overspreading the entire area. The Canadian prairies here seeing high temperatures in the teens to around 25, maybe 30 degrees Fahrenheit in southern Manitoba, but teens mostly widespread across the Canadian prairies. And then, of course, we're talking Celsius, we're back below zero. So the winter vibes will be back by the time we get to the end of next week. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Monday morning ag forecast video. And I'll have your next Canadian regional forecast for you Tuesday morning. And again, we'll be talking specifics as we look at late week snow. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Tuesday.